Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne Sportsnet production, available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you in part by Great Clips. At Great Clips, they want you to love your haircut. That's why they created Clip Notes. Notes that tell them what you like, so you get your same great haircut every time, anywhere. With Clip Notes, no matter which stylist cuts your hair, you'll get the haircut you want. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah!
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the Broken Skull Challenge compound out here in Agua Dulce, California. We're still filming the toughest show on television, and we're almost done. We've got a badass group of women coming out here who have competed at the national level all over the place in the United States. And that's what I'm doing out here. Recruiting the best athletes that I can find to come out to go through 3 rounds of competition. One person left standing at the end of the day to take on the Skullbuster. Man, I tell you what, every time a new group of men or women comes out here in the morning, I'll start off by telling them, after I've already made my intro, hey, man, this is going to be a long, hot day. We're going to be out here on top of a mountain in the desert from start to finish, and it's going to take about 10 hours. You know, you see the show on television, 60 minutes flies by. But when you're out here doing it, it's a long, hot day. Stay hydrated. If you need a bathroom, ask for the bathroom. You need sunblock, we got sunblock for you. I tell you what, everybody's kicking ass this year. We've seen some epic stuff out here. But it's a long, hot day. And by the end of the day, after standing out there in that sun with about 10 layers of 50 block on and being in a sand blaster because that wind is blowing, it doesn't leave me too much time for anything else. So we're going to wrap this show coming up next Tuesday on September the 20th. I've got some really cool guests coming up on the show. I appreciate you bearing with me. I've been slugging it out, trying to do the best I can, trying to give you guys the best audio whoop-ass I can. But when you're working out here, living on the set, and trying to do this podcast, man, I don't multitask very well. And on top of that, still making my comeback on this shoulder surgery that I had back on, I believe I had my surgery on April 20th. I am almost 5 months out. This weekend, I trained chest, shoulders, and back on Saturday and Sundays. And the reason I did that was because out here, all I have is a power rack and dumbbells that go from 30, 50 to 70. And I can't even pick up the 70-pound dumbbells yet because I'm not there yet with my strength. So, in the gym this week, working on chest, I finally got off the 50-pound incline dumbbell press. I'm now pressing 55 pounds for reps. Now my left side can press 100 pounds for 10 to 15 reps, but I'm training bilaterally. I'm using both arms right now. I'm not worried about the left side. It's so jacked up compared to the right side. I'm training everything the same. So even though the left arm is stronger than the right, I'm trying to bring that right side up, trying to squeeze. And the same thing with my lat on my working the back, working the shoulder. I think my shoulder presses, I'm still at 30 pounds on my dumbbell shoulder press with that right arm. You know, left arm is strong as hell. But I tell you what, I was talking to my buddy Rick Drayson the other day, old bodybuilder, and Rick just had some work done, and he's making a little bit of a comeback himself. And I tell you what, I can't remember in 2011 when I had my left rotator cuff rebuilt and my other bicep reattached as well. It seems like I bounced back from the surgery a little bit faster than I'm bouncing back from this one, although this one was a much more serious shoulder injury with that irregular tear to the labrum, along with the infrasupra tear and the bicep tenodesis, the reattachment at the top. So my right pec is still very thin, is still kind of jiggly and mushy. The left side is very tight and still pretty jacked. My right lat, the same thing. Just don't have really any muscle tone there yet. And the problem is you can't really explode yet as you're going through the compound movements. For instance, on dumbbell bench, you're not just powering up there and exploding from the bottom. It's really at a steady, just up-down kind of cadence. and I'm doing more reps in the 15 to 20 scheme, so I'm not really trying to load up and put heavy weight on that thing. Just get some blood movement in there, get some hypertrophy back, and just kind of fill that muscle full of blood. That 4.5 months in a stagnant position just really sapped everything. And the same thing with that bicep and that tricep. My bicep is making a better comeback so far than my tricep. Due to the fact that I can't straighten my right arm, it's hard to get that right tricep to fire at 100%. And that's due to the tricep reattachment I had in about 92 and all the calcium in that joint. People used to always think that the way I used to raise my hands in a WWF ring, I'd keep my arms kind of bent at the top. Well, I just kept the left one like that to match the right one. That's as far as that thing straightens out. It doesn't affect me when I'm lifting heavy or anything like that once I've recovered and I'm working at full speed. But just to bring you up to speed with where I'm at, I'm still making a comeback. It's slow and steady. Started deadlifting again. I'm deadlifting a $185 now. That's baby weight. That's chump weight compared to what I was doing. But the process is slow. And then trying to isolate the traps, doing barbell shrugs after I deadlift, trying to get that right trap to fire. Everything is atrophied, but I continue to mount a comeback. And hell, it's like, that's just... And hey, that's just the way it is. When you recover from an injury, you've got to go through the paces, take your time. If you try to rush something and you're doing it all by yourself, I opted out of rehab to continue the rehab by myself because I don't have time for it. I'm doing it on my own. And sometimes we get so impatient that you just want to go hog wild and get back to where you used to be. And not so fast, my friend. If you've got an injury, whether it's a leg injury, back injury, shoulder injury, any kind of injury, if you've had surgery on it, follow the protocol, pace yourself accordingly, don't get carried away. It's going to take time. I'll remember, when I first started doing dumbbell bench presses again, I was using 100-pound dumbbells on my left side. And I'd have to cheat over and scoot over on the bench so I wouldn't flop over because of the weight, because I didn't have a weight in the other hand. Then I started doing dumbbell press with my right side, and I was using a 2.5-pound chrome dumbbell. So from where I started with a 2.5-pound chrome dumbbell looking like a sissy up to the 5, then a few weeks later up to the 7.5, then the 10, so on. That's the kind of progression I would make. Usually go a dumbbell at a week's time. Now I'm up to 55 pounds for 10s and 15s, and it's feeling real solid. I feel like my doctor did an outstanding job on the surgery. I feel like I will come back at 100%, but it's just a real slow process. Anyway, hey man, that's enough about me. It's Monday morning as I record the open of this podcast. Hey, last Thursday I had Missy Hyatt on the podcast, and she was going to come back and ask me questions that she had put on a piece of paper. She had 2 or 3 pages of typed questions that she wanted to ask me, and we never really got around to those questions. So today, Missy's going to take the floor. She's going to ask me questions, and we're going to shoot the breeze about the old days, and I'll sneak a few questions in on her as well and get to some of the things there where she was at in her career. But I continue my discussion with Missy Hyatt today. I'm going to do a different podcast for Thursday, try to scrap something up. If you guys have questions, please send them to questions@steveaustonshow.com. I might do a little bit of a Q&A on that thing and just cut loose. I might call my buddy Ted Fowler just to help me out. Once I get through with this week, I will have 2 days left of work out here. We wrap on the 20th, and that's when I'll be back up to speed, rocking and rolling, full speed on the Steve Austin Show podcast. Appreciate you guys bearing with me. It's been a great time out here, but let's move on. Hey, gang, wait till you hear what Dollar Shave Club's doing, man. They just keep getting better and better. First, they started out delivering their amazing, affordable razors right to your front door for a bargain price. Now, 4 years later, they've got over 3 million members, and I'm one of them. And if you want to join the club, here's some great incentive. New members can get their first month free. One of my favorite 4-letter words. Just go to dollarshaveclub.com/Steve. But like I was saying, Dollar Shave Club is doing a lot more than razors these days. They're on a mission to help you look, smell, and feel your best. They spent millions developing their own original grooming products for your face, hair, and body. They got you covered with pre- and post-shave formulas, skin protection formulas, hairstyling products, and some pretty cool soap and body wash products. You know what the best part about it is? They ship it right to your front door, along with a great razor, so you don't ever have to go to the store again. You don't ever have to wander down the shampoo and soap aisle trying to figure out which damn product to buy. It don't get any easier than that. And like their razors, the Dollar Shave Club grooming line is high-quality stuff for an amazing price. So give it a try. You'll see the products work and the service is world-class, and there's no commitment and no hidden fees. You can cancel whenever you want. Just pay shipping, and after that, it's just a few bucks. So get your first month free at dollarshaveclub.com/Steve. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Steve.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, here I am sitting with Missy Hyatt. She's about to open up a wrestling conversation. And go, Missy.
Okay. Thank you, Stunning Steve. I like calling you Stunning Steve. I love Stone Cold, but Stunning Steve's much better for me to call you that. So here you go. Thank you for doing my questions. My first one is, as I know that you told me that you went to the Sportatorium and you watched World Class as a fan, but what other wrestling promotions did you watch or attend as a fan?
I didn't attend anything other than World Class Championship Wrestling, because I didn't have any money, and I was based in Dallas at that time, and when Houston wrestling was going on with Paul Bosch, my mom and dad, they weren't going to drive me 100 miles down the highway to see no pro wrestling show. So really the only thing I'd ever been to was World Class Championship Wrestling when I was playing football at North Texas State University, and I was there from 86 to 87. I might have got there in the back end of 85, playing football at North Texas. And so that's where I went. But growing up on Houston, Mid-South Power Pro with Bill Watts, everything in NWA, WCW, a little bit of AWA. WWF at the time really wasn't down where we were at because everything was so much more regional. So I was just a huge fan of everything that the Crockett's were doing, the Horseman, Flair, Dusty, that whole troop of people. And I didn't get anything off the, out of California.
Well, did you watch the Southwest Wrestling that had Tully Blanchard or the Texas All-Star Wrestling?
No.
Never. Oh, my gosh. You need to go back and see some of Tully's interviews. Tully Blanchard's interviews were so awesome.
I caught Tully when he's going through, with Arn, down there where they formed the Horsemen and all that stuff. But I didn't catch any of the Southwest stuff. And that was interesting because, at first, I guess relations were okay between Dallas and San Antonio, but then everything got all hairy, and they started running opposition of each other.
Right, yeah. If you ever get a chance, watch some of the Tully Blanchard stuff. It's really good.
Well, I always liked his work in the ring.
Yeah, oh yeah. Great worker. Okay, if WCW never hired you in 91, plus with the territories dying out, did you have any other places in mind to work? For example, Skandar Akbar was booking Puerto Rico in 91 or Japan.
Man, that's a great question. I was down there in the USWA, and we talked a little bit of money last time we had a conversation, and I was making $15 and $20 a night for about the first year in the business. And then the second time I went back, they shipped me back to Dallas, and I turned heel against Chris Adams. And then when I went back to Tennessee, the USWA territory, I had a $100 a night guarantee. I thought that was pretty good money at the time and didn't know any better. And then word on the street started coming around that Dusty Rhodes wanted me over in WCW, and that Tom Pritchard said I need to call Magnum or call Dusty. And so I got in touch with those people, and they hired me. So that was my next step. If WCW had not hired me, I didn't have plan B. I was living in the moment, day by day. It's great to have a big board or a big plan, but when you're just starting off, you don't know where to crap or wine you watch. So you're just going by, being booked on a weekly basis. Had they have fired me and I didn't know what to do, I would have started calling some people, or maybe, I would have went back and started driving that forklift again that I was driving before I got into business. But to answer your question, I don't know what I would have done. I never did really want to go to Puerto Rico after what happened to Brody.
Right.
And so I never really thought about that. I've had a few opportunities to go over there in the past, but I've always just passed them by. and I always wanted to go there because I heard it was such a tough, environment, and the wrestling down there was so real. So that part appealed to me.
Crazy fans too. The Puerto Rican fans are crazy. They throw like batteries wrapped in something, and they light them on fire and throw them at you. It's really fun being a heel.
Cups of piss, all kinds of stuff. But go back to your question. I don't know. I'm just glad WCW hired me, and quite frankly, when Eric Bischoff came in, I'm glad when he fired me, because had he not fired me, then Paul Lee wouldn't have picked me up, and then I wouldn't have gone to WWE. So I don't know if I got dealt a lucky hand of cards at the time, or it was predestined for me to be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Being in the right place at the right time. That's what I've always thought. Being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. So if they hadn't hired me, I don't know what would happen.
Okay. Well, which veterans did you pick their brains in Dallas with, other than Skandar Akbar and Bronco Lubitsch?
Oh, man. I was so lucky to be able to jump in the back of the car with Bronco and Skandar when we'd go to Louisiana, and I didn't know where anything was there. So all this was new to me. And so, yes, those guys dropped all their 411 on me and were so gracious. And then I would travel down the road with Gorgeous Gary Young. And Gorgeous Gary Young was a hell of a damn worker, and he was a good promo, too. He never got a big-time break, but he was damn solid in the ring. His psychology was outstanding. So Gorgeous Gary Young helped me out a lot. Danny Davis, when we got down there in Tennessee, Superstar Bill Dundee. Those are a couple of guys that, of course, Paul Orndorff, once I got into WCW, Harley Race, riding down the roads with those guys. And Rick Rude was a fun guy to ride down the road with, because that's all Rude wanted to do was talk about the business. And, he had a big board. He'd talk about heat, talk about the baby face. And he goes, it's hard to have a Rick Rude conversation without cussing, because he cussed so much. But he was very, very knowledgeable. All the Minnesota guys were knowledgeable about the business. But those were a few of the many that helped me out. And I know I'm forgetting a bunch of them as well.
Right. Well, did you ever work with Eddie Gilbert in Memphis or learn anything from him?
You know what? Me and Eddie only crossed paths a time or two, and never really had, man, I know I met Eddie, but I always heard of his booking genius and, saw his promos, saw his work, but we never really spent any time together. And then when I was just coming in Tennessee, I think, Elliot, if I came into Tennessee, Missy, in 91, where was Eddie?
I believe he was in Tennessee or USWA around that time.
Okay, but he was so high up.
He was getting ready to go there.
Yeah, but look, he was so high up. He was in top tier of the card. I was in the curtain jerker spot. So when you just came in and you're so green. I mean, this is back in '90. So, you don't really mix with those guys. The guys you're working with, like, the Gary Youngs and people like that, those are upper card guys too, but I didn't have access to an Eddie Gilbert.
Okay. Well, did you ever work with John Tatum in Dallas?
No, but I got a chance to go watch him wrestle when I was at North Texas State. And, we'd go throw stuff at the wrestlers and drink beer, but I never got a chance to work with John. But like you said last time we were talking, best facials in the business, great at selling, and he's mean when he got the heat. To me, John Tatum and Michael Hayes were, in a way, very much alike, but different as well. Whole different promo, but they just kind of reminded me of each other from a facial.
They grew up together. They grew up together. Yeah. So, and he was my one regret in my life. Like, if I look back on my life, like we were talking the other day, if I had known back then what I know now, what would I have done? And I was just like, I think breaking up with Johnny was probably the worst thing I ever did. So
let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. Because
sure.
I wanted to put a clip of you. I always do a video at the end of my podcast to tell someone to watch something. And I couldn't find the whole clip of the Gucci bag with Dark Journey, so it was only a 3-minute and 32-second clip. I thought there was more, but I started watching some other stuff, and not to get into your dating some of the guys, but you brought it up. So when Eddie Gilbert and John Tatum and then who else was at the table, y'all were negotiating something. Jim Ross was interviewing y'all.
Oh, Jim Ross, yes.
Yeah, it was down in UWF, and so you needed a hairbrush, so John goes to get the hairbrush, but then Eddie already has one
Eddie
for
hands
you.
it to, yeah.
So what was going on there? Because were you with John or Eddie at the time?
I was with John at the time, but me and Eddie were liking each other. You know, when they put us together, it started us
It's one of those things that just happened.
And it
right?
just happened, yeah. But I look back on it now, and I was like, and I did John really bad, and I feel, you know, and I feel bad about that, and I'm just, you know, I'm thinking, me and John together were so much better together. Like, I never gelled with anybody other than John Tate. I mean, I managed Eddie, I managed I managed Nasties, I managed the Steiners, whatever. But gelling and being with somebody, I never worked that great. I worked with Johnny the best, and it's just like I could see me and Johnny going other places together.
Why?
And he was a great guy too.
So what happened on the switcheroo? I mean, how did you leave John to go to Eddie and stay in the same territory? That had to be uncomfortable.
It was hard. It was really hard because there was so much animosity between the two. They wouldn't even book them. They booked them one time to, you know, against each other, but they couldn't do it. And they kept us both heels. They kept him and Jack Victory as heels and us as heels. So then they said it was just too much heat that they couldn't put them together in the ring because they thought something might happen.
And, you know, that's the thing. What a lot of people think, hey, man, there's heat between those two guys as a shoot, so this should be a real good match. That's not the case. If you ain't out there getting along like peanut butter and jelly, the match probably going to be a stinker or average at best.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me digress, and you take it back up with your questions.
All right. How is it? Well, you were with John Tatum and Tessa was an act in comparison to you and Jeannie. Weren't you guys there at the same time? How was it being with two, you know, guys, you know, similar guys with the ballets, you know, heels in a small territory? How was that?
I was so green and working with Chris Adams, and he was calling all the shots. It was all I could do to stay focused on the task at hand and listen to every single thing he said. He would call the matches in the ring. We rarely set anything up. You know, we knew the finish.
Right.
But, you know, Chris was, you know, by that time, hell, he was a veteran. Everybody knew Chris was a hell of a worker. Charismatic guy, good looking. He just had some demons. So anyway, to answer your question, I didn't pay attention to anybody. I was so hungry because I just came back from USWA. I wasn't making any money. And when I remember we were getting on the bus, it was a Thursday night. It was a spot show. And in the USWA, when you worked the spot show on Thursday, it was within 100 miles of Nashville. So that's when everybody got into the tour bus that Jerry was leasing from Waylon Jennings. So everybody get on the tour bus and we'd drive down to Dallas. And then we'd work the Sportatorium, drive to Memphis, work Memphis TV, and go back to Nashville and get dropped off wherever your car was for the spot show, and then go back to your hotel, and then go work at Nashville Fairgrounds. Well, anyway, we were getting on the bus that night after the spot show, getting ready to head to the next show, Dallas or whatever, and Jerry says, Steve, I'm sending you back to Dallas. And I looked at him, just as Jerry Jarrett, and I said, you mean you're firing me? He goes, no, I'm not firing you. I'm going to send you back to Texas and turn you heel to work against Chris. So I said, okay. And Dutch Mantell and I used to travel together with Chris Champion. And Dutch had already told me, you know, Dutch gave me the name Steve Austin. You know, my real name back in the day was Steve Williams. But I couldn't be Steve Williams because Dr. Death was already around. So anyway, you know, Dutch had said, hey, man, and I was a babyface for a little bit. And he goes, hey, man, if you ever go back to Texas and turn heel, you can be a cocky, arrogant bastard and call yourself Stunning Steve Austin. So that's what I did. I went back to Texas, turned to Stunning Steve Austin, turned heel against Chris. And you got to understand, I'd only been in the business 6 months.
Right.
So, man, were Tessa, John, or, what's that?
Who was the booker that put your program against Chris Adams? Was it Eric Embry?
No, that was all Chris Adams. Chris booked all of our stuff, though Eric did have the book. So, and you know, we operated within Eric's guidelines, but Chris booked our stuff. So to answer your question, man, I didn't pay attention to Tessa. She was a really cute girl. I was just trying to do my thing.
Right. Well, do you think the program with Chris's ex-wife current wife at the time and star pupil put you on the map based on its drawing fans for a dead promotion? Because it was drawing 400, but then you guys got it up to like 1,200.
Boy, you didn't mess around. You did your research. You are right. That angle drew money. And I'll say this, and I've said it before, that was a high-profile angle. We were working in the co-main event. We were the semi-main almost every single night. You know, Kerry or Kevin had that number one spot. And that's respect. Yeah. So anyway, 1990, I broke in the back end of 1989, and then in 1990 we had that feud, and then based on that feud, Pro Wrestling Illustrated named me Rookie of the Year. Missy, had I never been in that angle, I would have never been noticed. We would have never had that come as you are match where I came as a football player and he came as a judo player. We would have never had the cage match. Me and Percy would have never beat up Chris Von Erich and, you know, get color on him, all that stuff. So, man, in the middle of all that, I got to thank Chris Adams. And, you know, I was, again, going back to what you said, I was the right guy at the right place at the right time when I joined Chris Adams' school. And when I was standing in line, I showed up. Missy, I didn't have any fancy clothes or nothing. I was just a college athlete on a scholarship, and I worked summer jobs, you know, for my money to spend during the year. And I had a pair of black Gerbo jeans, I had a pair of black loafers, and a purple Izod shirt, and I had long blonde hair. I was a pretty good-looking kid back then. And when Chris saw me walking at school, I mean, his eyes lit up because he figured
making money.
Yeah,
he was thinking money. Yeah,
based on a look, you know, he thought he had something. And
well, speaking of looks, what do you think of Rod Price? Because I always thought that he was kind of similar look to you.
Oh, man, I thought Rod had a great look. As a matter of fact, you know, he was a guy that kind of turned heads because his physique, it wasn't on the level of Kerry Von Erich's, but it was in that category. You know, Kerry had that one-of-a-kind physique. But, you know, Rod Price, good look, pretty damn good worker. And let me go back a little bit because when you were asking me what I would have done had WCW not called me, I forgot that the all-time great Gary Hart was running some shows on weekends when Dallas wasn't running at the Metroplex Arena. And Gary had put me and Rod Price together. You know, we were singles in WCCW, but for Metroplex, working for Gary, we were a tag team. And I don't even remember if we had a name. And we were actually the tag team champions working for Gary Hart. So I have a past history with Rod Price. And as a matter of fact, I think when they were going to send both of us to Tennessee, Rod had met a girl, and he wanted to stay back in Dallas with his girl. I went to Tennessee, and I started having my singles run. That's when I came back, turned heel. But Rod was supposed to go to Tennessee with me, but he never did.
So you never know what could have happened with you two guys with that similar look. You never know.
Okay, let's take a minute here so I can say thank you to all the great sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. And thank you to all my listeners for supporting the sponsors. That's how I'm able to do this show twice a week for free. And, man, ain't nothing better than a sponsor that gives you the chance to win some serious cash. And that's exactly what DraftKings does. It's 1 week fantasy football, so that means no season-long commitments. You ain't stuck with the same players. You can draft a new lineup every time you play. You like how Denver Broncos quarterback Trevor Siemian looked his first couple of games? Man, dude was one cool, calm customer against Carolina, and you can get him at DraftKings.com. And if you use my promo code Steve, you can play for free. In fact, DraftKings is hosting another free fantasy contest this weekend. $100,000 in total prizes are up for grabs. No deposit required. It's true. No deposit required. So you can really put your fantasy knowledge to the test for free to win your share of $100,000 this weekend. DraftKings is the destination for 1 week fantasy football. So get to DraftKings.com now and use the promo code Steve and play for free in this weekend's $100,000 fantasy contest. This contest is free, no deposit required, so there's really no reason not to give DraftKings a shot. Again, use my promo code Steve to play for free for your share of $100,000 this weekend, only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details. All right, coming back from a little break, talking to the one and only Missy Hyatt. One of my favorites of all time.
So what were your thoughts on Kevin Von Erich took control of Dallas briefly from Jerry Jarrett in August of 1990? Did the pay increase?
Man, I didn't notice anything about the pay increase on a single night in Dallas because, you know, that was Friday night, and we did the television taping on Saturday morning. And I don't even remember. I told you last time, my first match, I got $40 working with Frogman LeBlanc, but believe me, I wasn't getting rich in the wrestling business in my first 2 years in the business.
Not a lot of people do. Well, were you around Dallas when Joe Pedicino was going around that he had a Nigerian backer worth millions and was going to open up Global? I mean, did you believe it at the time?
No, I didn't know anything about that. At the time, I knew about Joe Pedicino and Bonnie Blackstone, but I think I was down in Tennessee, and then that's when they did open it up, and I know that's how, well, you told me, whether it was on a phone call or on our last podcast, that you got Buff Mark Bagwell in the business. And that's when they hired Mark, put that mask on him. And, Mark's a good-looking guy. Yep. And that was a great gimmick. But, no, I never was a part of Global and didn't know anything about it.
Right. Well, when WCW booked you in the worst scaffold match ever, did they ask you to take a bump off the scaffold, and would you have done it?
Here's the thing about that match. Why they booked that match, I have no idea. I don't even remember working a program because it was me and Bobby Eaton versus PN News and Terry Taylor. And Terry Taylor's a hell of a damn hand and a guy that helped me out a whole lot as well. He gave me a lot of advice down the road. And, of course, Bobby Eaton did as well. And you put PN News, his 400-pound self, up on a scaffold, and here's what happened. We couldn't do anything like Night of the Skywalkers with, the Road Warriors and Jim Cornette because what they did was they sent the wrong structure. So here's why that match was a turd. The rails or the beams were so big around in circumference you couldn't get your hands around them to hang or do any kind of stuff on the bottom. So we were relegated to staying on the top. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't going to defy death anyway. But at the time, I was only like 27 years old, so I was ready to do something. But you couldn't do anything from underneath there because the posts were too big to grab with your hands. So we stuck to the top, and you had to go get to your opponent's flag and do something with it. And Dave Meltzer gave that the worst worked match of the year.
It was pretty bad.
I'll never live that one down. And here's the thing. Man, I've been fortunate to be a part of a bunch of sellouts and stuff like that when I got hot as Stone Cold. But you know what? When you're paying your dues and you're up on a scaffold and that match sucks and you got about 15 minutes left, it is a bad day at the office.
Exactly. Do you think Bill Watts was nuts in phasing out the Dangerous Alliance after Wrestle War 92, especially considering you guys gave the booking direction as top heels and filled the Horseman void?
Man, I don't remember why and how we got shut down. I remember working War Games 92 against Sting Squadron and having a hellacious match there and getting good color and, tearing the house down that night. I don't remember why they split us up. I think it was okay for me because, I don't know, I don't think anybody had any real plans for me as far as being a superstar or anything. So I'm kind of a loner anyway. It was great to be a part of that group because I think everybody in there should be in the Hall of Fame. And I got a lot of knowledge from it and got to work with some badass guys. But, I didn't really pay attention to it. Okay.
Well, what were your dealings with Jim Herd like, and how long did it take you to figure out that he knew nothing about wrestling?
Jim Herd and Kip Fry were both very cool to me. I don't remember dealing with them a whole lot. I know that neither one of them had a whole lot of knowledge about the wrestling business. I just knew that I had my guaranteed contract. Like I told you back in the day, it was $75 and it rolled to $156 in most occasions. And then above and beyond that, it was dealing with Eric. Because when Eric came in, that's when I was trying to start renegotiating another deal. Oh, no, I got a second deal after that, and then I was trying to negotiate with Eric after that. But I didn't really deal too much with those people. What I was trying to do then, Missy, it was still just trying to learn the mechanics of the game. And my mechanics were getting at a pretty decent level, and then I was trying to learn a little bit more advanced psychology to get out of the 101 level and get to the 201 level. So dealing with those higher-ups wasn't really my forte.
Well, did Bill Watts harass you to take a pay cut or take one of his incentive-based contracts?
No, he didn't. I didn't have too many dealings with Bill.
You're like the only one.
I got along great with Bill, and it wasn't like we had a bunch of warm, fuzzy, conversations, because he's not a warm, fuzzy guy. He's, tough-ass, smart promoter. When he came in, he rescinded the top rope rule. He grounded, a lot of aerial wrestlers who that was their bread and butter. And they took away the mats around ringside, and I'm like, man, I fell on that floor, the Dallas Sportatorium, that wooden floor, and I busted my chin open. It had 60 stitches in there and a tag match. And so that was on a wood floor. So you can imagine what a cement floor would do. So, I thought...
I've been dropped on my head before on that cement floor. I know I got a concussion at the Baltimore, one of the pay-per-views, when they kidnapped me. I was supposed to have that mixed tag match against Paul Lee and I think Arn Anderson, and it was me and... who was it? It wasn't PN News. It was somebody else. Anyway, they ended up Dick Murdoch and Dickie Slater came out and they kidnapped me because in Baltimore they were like no women in the ring with men, even though we were going around for that Great American Bash. That's what it was. And he picked me up and he threw me over his shoulder and he was sweaty and wet and I went straight down and hit my head and got knocked unconscious. So I can imagine hitting the floors, taking bumps continuously out there. I wouldn't want to do that at all.
I think a lot of the feeling from the boys was maybe the business at that time had passed Bill by.
Yeah.
He's an old school guy, and I appreciate Bill. And don't get me wrong, when I look back, like the stuff when you were around, that mid-'80s stuff and Mid-South Power Pro, NWA, that was great stuff. But when he got to WCW, I think it was just a different dawn.
Yeah, it was totally different. Did you think Bill Watts went too far in jobbing out Brian Pillman in order for him to take out a lower paid contract?
I didn't even know that had happened. What happened?
He was jobbing Brian out every day, and Brian was like, I'll be the highest paid jobber there is, because he wanted him to take that incentive-based, the contracts that we pay you this, and then after 3 months, then you get the pay or whatever. And Brian said, no, I want to keep my contract, because Brian was making good money, and he jobbed him out every night. And Brian said, that's fine. You can job me out every night. I'll be the highest paid jobber there is.
I think I remember something about Brian saying that. Here's the thing. When did Bill Watts come in there, and when did he leave?
Oh, gosh. Okay. When was that? That was...
Because he wasn't there forever.
What was it, 93? Was it 93? Like 92, 93?
Well...
It seems to me. I just remember one year he gave everybody suitcase. They gave him luggage. Did you get the luggage for Christmas?
No, I didn't get no luggage for Christmas.
Well, me either.
If I did, I forgot it.
I was the only one that didn't get it had WCW on the side. It was like a little tote bag and a hang-up bag. And I was like, I remember I never got it. Well, you know what? Now I don't feel so bad because you didn't get any luggage. I didn't get any luggage. But yeah, he wasn't there. I mean, I was going to ask you how the morale was because, I told you I didn't ride with any of the guys. I really rode by myself. I either rode with Jason or I rode by myself. But how was the morale?
I think everybody was kind of disgruntled. But again, I was still so new in the business, and hell, if it was 93, I think I'm 28, 29. Man, I'm full of piss and vinegar learning about the business, all about the business, everything that goes with the business, booking the territory in the car, drinking beer on the way to the next town. I mean, I ate, lived, and breathed the business, and it was one of the best times of my life. So for all it matters, I could have been doing jobs every night, but I was happy just being in the ring.
Being in the ring, exactly. Do you think WCW was nuts for breaking up you and Brian Pillman so soon? I mean, they had the excuse that it was the low Clash of the Champions ratings against Flair and Anderson.
Where did you dig that information up? Because that's really interesting. I didn't want to be a tag team to begin with. We was in Dothan, Alabama at a television taping, and they were just about to start me out as a U.S. champ. And Harley Race, the 8-time world champion, Harley Race was going to be my manager. All of a sudden, Brian Pillman comes up to me, and I didn't really know Brian that much. But I knew him because he was on the roster. And everybody liked Brian. I mean, you can't miss him. He's so loud and over the top and just a great dude. And he goes, hey, kid. He goes, we need to think of a finish. We're a tag team now. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, go ask Dusty. So I said, all right, I will go ask Dusty. I go into where Dusty's office is at the Dothan, whatever, Civic Center, whatever it is. I said, hey, Dusty, I said, what's going on? Brian says we're in a tag team. And he goes, yeah, baby, that's what we're going to do for you. He goes, yeah, baby, that's what we're going to do with you. Put you guys in the tag team. I said, hey, I thought I was going to be the U.S. champion. You could put Harley Race with me. He goes, yeah, we're going to save that for another time. So all of a sudden, I'm in a tag team with Brian Pillman. And so for a while, he always had his Bengals trunks on, and I used to have those mismatched trunks that wasn't worth a damn. And they put us together, and we didn't have nothing that matched, and we were just, Stunning Steve and Flying Brian. And then Brian came up with the idea that, you know what, Steve, if we're going to be a tag team, every good tag team's got to have a name. He goes, I already got it. The Hollywood Blondes. He goes, it's already been before. He goes, it's already been done before, but it doesn't matter. It'll be new. And I said, okay, whatever.
I loved it. And you guys would do the little camera thing afterwards and everything. I loved it. I was so pissed that I wasn't managed. I didn't get to manage. I thought for sure it would have been perfect for me to manage you guys, and they didn't get to do it. But, I was supposed to manage Shane Douglas in ECW, and I didn't get Shane Douglas. Paulie promised me Shane, and I ended up with Sandman. That's a whole nother story.
But I don't know why they broke us up, because when they broke us up, we started getting over, and we started getting over big time. And then that's when we had everything matching, the black vest, the silver vest, and then they split us up. So to go back to answer that question, I don't know why they did that. We were an interim tag team designed to get people over. All of a sudden, we were getting beat, but then we started getting over. So then we started going over, and they just said, hey, piss on those guys. Let's break them up. Nothing made sense, Missy. And I was really upset at that point in my career. The first time I'd really been kind of professionally upset, because it was a setback.
Well, I remember talking to you about that, and I remember out there at your house when you lived way out there, out 20 or whatever it was. And I remember telling you, when does your contract expire? Mine's coming up. Maybe we can all go to WWE as the Hollywood Blondes, all three of us. When does Brian, I remember talking to you about that. So. And
those things, package deals always scare me, because, it was a thing, if Brian would get hurt, then, I got to start wrestling as singles, and you're in tag team mode, and you're not going to get a heavy push as a singles because you're considered a tag team guy. And my first year and a half in the business, or 2 years before I got put with Brian, I was a singles wrestler. But once I got into that tag team and we started clicking, that's when, and I already loved tag team wrestling, but I wasn't a good tag team wrestler. When me and Brian clicked, I started learning the facets of teamwork and cheating and manipulating the ref. That opened up a whole nother level for me, and I just fell in love with it. And you could go out there and rock the house, 4 different pieces plus a referee, 5, tear the place down and do half the work because you got a partner.
Exactly. That's why using a valet is so good. Anyway, I remember you and Pillman teamed with the Heavenly Bodies against Shane Douglas and Ricky Steamboat in the Rock and Roll Express in 1993. Who had the better babyface psychology in Morton or Steamboat?
God dang, I don't even remember that match. But let me say this. When you say the name Ricky Steamboat, you're talking about one of the most classic, iconic white meat baby faces who can fill in all the gaps. Great fire, workmanship, salesmanship. The whole ball of wax. And plus, he was a good-looking guy.
Do you know I just saw him not that long ago, right before I retired. I worked in Charlotte, and I got a picture with him. I put my arm around him. He's solid as a rock. Yep. He is still, at his age. And I was just like, oh my gosh. This guy is in phenomenal shape. Well,
and go back to the other guys. You said Shane Douglas, right?
Yep. Shane Douglas.
Oh, see, there was a time, a little bit where every now and then Steamboat would go into a little bit oversell mode. And so then sometimes me and Brian preferred to get the heat on Shane Douglas. And Shane was a magnificent babyface. He could sell his ass off. White meat as hell, just like Steamboat. Good looking, good drop kick, very mechanical. And I always loved Shane's work in the ring, but I always thought his promo was a heel. which I think it really shined when he went to ECW. Those promos he was dropping in ECW were incredible, but his work was better as a babyface. Promo better as a heel, work better as a babyface. That guy was fun to work with. And, man, when you talk about the Rock and Roll Express, you're talking about one of my favorite tag teams of all time. So I want those guys to go into the WWE Hall of Fame just because they need to be recognized by one of the biggest company or the last, big dog on the block, WWE. They should go in their Hall of Fame because those guys were so important to tag team wrestling. And because you were around those guys in Mid-South and NWA, the girls on the front row really would be crying when Ricky started selling, or if they get the first set of heat on Robert, give Ricky a hot tag, and then they shut down Ricky and really set into the second set of heat, people would be crying. And then when they would make their entrance, it would be like a shrill because the girls loved them so much. Everybody loved them, but particularly the girls.
Everybody loved them,
So anyway, and then when you talk about the Midnights, I don't know. Heavenly Bodies. Tom Pritchard was very influential in my career. I forgot to say him as well because at the time I was traveling with Dutch and Chris Champion in my Hyundai Excel. And then finally, Dutch was doing something with the booking, so we were no longer riding together. And Tom Pritchard was driving Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony's. It was like a Toyota Corolla or something. White Boy was over there in Japan, so Tom Pritchard was traveling in his car. So I was doing my thing, and we were living at the same hotel, the Congress Inn. So Dirty White Boy's car breaks down, so Tom needs a ride. And he goes, hey, you might as well jump in with you. And me and Tom was like in a different planet, right? And we didn't hang around together. He did his thing, I did mine. And we go to the gym every morning, and going to Memphis on a Monday night from Nashville is 205 miles. And not a word was said either way. And then finally we started talking, and we turned into the best of friends in the world. And Tom was the first guy to ride down the road. This is when Brian Lee jumped in with us. Primetime Brian Lee jumped in with us. And we were riding down to Louisville one day. I think it was Louisville. And Tom says, I was Stunning Steve at the time. I'd already done that heel run. And Tom says, hey, Steve, let me ask you a question. He goes, what's so stunning about Stunning Steve? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, you should. And he goes, hey, Brian. He goes, what's so prime time about Brian Lee? What he was getting at was, what's the gimmick? What are you all about? Like if someone says, hey, what's so stone cold about Steve Austin? I can tell you what's so stone cold about Steve Austin. I don't care. I'm going to whip your ass. Don't piss me off. Don't try to box me in. Don't tell me what to do. That's the gimmick. Tom was the first guy to make my eyes open up to, hey, there's a different level here. You don't just be a mechanic. You're a personality. And that's why people care about you, whether they love you or they hate you. That's the part they buy into. I got to thank Tom Pritchard for that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
All right, got to give big ups to my close personal friend and longtime sponsor, Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. DDP Yoga has changed countless lives, including some of your favorite pro wrestlers like Jake Roberts, Scott Hall, Mick Foley, AJ Styles, and Y2J Chris Jericho. They all swear by DDP Yoga. And now DDP has taken his life-changing program to a whole nother level with the DDP Yoga Now app on iOS and Android devices. So now you ain't got no more excuses about why you can't start DDP Yoga. The app means you can do it anytime, anywhere. And the cool thing about the app is that you can track more than just DDP Yoga workouts. By connecting to a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, you can track your calories and heart rate in real time, no matter where you are or what you're doing. All the fitness tracking features like pain tracking, measurements, progress photos, and much more are completely free in the app. And DDP Yoga Now subscribers can do the original workouts, the new 2.0 workouts, and live workouts from the DDP Yoga Performance Center. And to make it even easier than he's already made it for a limited time, you can get the DDP Yoga DVDs for 20% off, plus 3 months of full access to the DDP Yoga Now app. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin. That's ddpyoga.com/Austin. Take advantage of this great deal. Commit now. Change your life now. Go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. And one last thing before we get back into it, I have a big favor to ask that will take less than 10 minutes of your time. Please go to podcastingsurvey.com and complete a short online survey. The first 250 people that complete the survey will get a $25 gift card to restaurant.com and a chance to win an additional $250 card. As you hear me say all the time, this show is supported by advertisers, and filling out this survey will really help us out. So please go to podcastingsurvey.com and take the survey now.
Okay, well, this is back to Ricky Steamboat. Did Ricky Steamboat give you and Brian Pillman much direction when you had those 45 to 60-minute house show matches against him and Shane Douglas?
No, man, Ricky was so cool. He let us call it all. And, yeah. Now, he would also chip in stuff in the ring, but he was so respectful that we were the heels, and he was the senior guy, so he absolutely had liberty to squash anything we wanted to do or make a redirect. But that's the thing about Steamboat that was so cool. He just wanted to go out there and work, and he'd already had that monster run into WWE. And, he was down at WCW working with us. We were having badass matches. I think he appreciated how hungry we were, how hard we worked to shine him up, and flip-flopped and flew for him when it was time for them to make a comeback. And they either, beat us, or they slipped on a banana peel, or we screwed them somehow. But there was a lot of chemistry there, and that it just goes to show how unselfish Ricky Steamboat is, one of the greatest of all time.
Right. Oh, he is, definitely. In our last interview, you were telling me about Stone Cold, how you got it from Kuklinski, the serial killer. But I was wanting to know if you ever got any of your persona from the old school David Schultz promos.
It's really neat that you asked that question, because when I go back and watch some of those interviews, there's a definite parallel.
Yes.
But I hadn't seen any of the interviews because... No.
Oh, my gosh.
Because, Missy, that was all regional. I wasn't getting that.
Okay.
Man, when I get on YouTube, and this is as far back as 2 or 3 years ago, I watch a lot of his stuff. When they showed up at his house that one time, it's a little vignette, his whole family's there, and he's being mean. All that stuff, the stuff with John Stossel, but it's just his promos. Boy,
oh, yes,
that guy, I really think he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, because that guy, I think, had money written all over him, had better sense of booking him. But then again, I didn't know the man, so maybe he was such a wild card, but people didn't want to take a gamble on him because maybe it was hot temper. I don't know.
I heard he was a wild man, and he really intimidated people and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, but as far as the gimmick goes, there was a definite parallel, but there no influence from him. But when I look back, it's very close.
Very close, yeah. When did you discover the newsletters, and which one did you read first?
Man, when you talk about the newsletters, everybody talking about the kayfabe sheets.
Yeah.
If I am not mistaken, it had to have been Flying Brian that told me about the sheets, and he goes, "Hey, kid." And, Wade Keller has his, and Dave Meltzer had his. And I know there's a bunch of them out there now, but back in the day, there was 2. And those were the holy grail of the inside of what's going on in the business. And back then...
One time I was leaving a territory before I even knew it by reading it in Meltzer's sheet.
Really? But see, here's the thing. You wanted to read the sheets because you wanted the inside information. Those guys had people on the inside that would drop them booking info, like you just said, and they had a great scope of the business. They were very studious of the business. So, and people respected what they had to say. If Meltzer put you over...
Still do.
Yeah, they still do. If Meltzer put you over, just him putting you over, and Keller too, but Meltzer was really the number one guy back then, with his 4 3/4 matches and all this stuff. It could change the future of your booking just based on what he said. But here's the thing.
He realizes how much power that he had, or that he has.
But you never wanted to be caught with the sheets. You could pass them back. Everybody kayfabe the fact that they're reading the kayfabe sheets.
We would in UWF, it'd be so funny, we'd get one, and I discovered it from Eddie, and you would be passing them around, and you'd read one, and it's such a little print, and it's on two sides, and you're reading it, and you're, okay, who's got page 3? Who's got 3? Who's got 3? Who's got 4? Give me, I need the rest of this. I need the rest of this. So,
and back then the business was so protected, you didn't want to be known that you read the sheets. Hey man, you read what Keller said, you read what Meltzer said.
Yeah.
No, man, what did he say? He said this. What are you talking about? Because, dude, and you just because the business is so protected, you just didn't want to be caught with the sheets or seen with the sheets. But everybody was. Here's the thing. Brian was always in the know, and I think Brian had someone in the office who gave him a lot of 411. Within WCW. And then a little bit in WWE, he wasn't there very long, but he was very proactive in seeking out information. Hell, I was just, resolved to going down the road and learning everything on my own. But those sheets dropped a lot of very important information. And, I got to give those guys a lot of credit for surviving all this time, reporting on, the workings of the business. Because, back in Missy, they were almost a pariah, if you will. I mean, because... people hated
Jim
him.
Cornette was going to beat him up. Jim Cornette was threatening to beat Meltzer up.
They'd show up at a house. They'd show up at a house show and have heat.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, this is my last question for you. Since you were never lucky enough to have Missy Hyatt as your manager, but you did use Medusa a bunch of times, how was she to work with?
Medusa's great. See, here's the thing about her. Man, I was a big fan of hers back in the AWA days. So then, like I always mention AWA on the back end of everything that I'm saying, because Houston Wrestling, World Class Championship, Mid-South Power Pro, and NWA were what I feasted on. That's what I always got from start to finish. Then I started getting AWA and then some WWF. And I started catching AWA. The promotion was kind of starting to go downhill then, but Medusa was out there. She was super hot. She was super talented. She could go. It was real interesting because when she came to WCW, I mean, she had all the respects of the boys because she used to go over and have those badass matches with Bull Nakano.
Yeah.
So everybody respected Deuce. And on top of that, she was beautiful to begin with. So I enjoyed working with her. I thought she was really cool. And I wish I would have known more. Me and Missy had a phone call the other day of wishing we would have known now what we known then what we know now.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known.
Back then, we knew everything back then.
I know. If I'd have known more about how to use her to my advantage, like drawing a referee, making her more interactive, I didn't know. When you're 5 years in the business, 4 or 5 years in the business, it's great to go out there with an attractive valet, but you've got to be able to work with them, use them, and manipulate things, and you take the heat or wherever the heat needs to go. But it's just
give them the heat, and you can. Yeah, I mean, that's what is so great with John. Me and John worked together so well. It was just so easy working with him. That was the first person I worked with, and the only person that I ever really worked well with was Johnny. And it's a shame that it didn't last as long as it did, because I think guys with the valet or even a guy manager, there's so much you can do because you got the referee there, you got the other. I mean, there's just so much you can do with the fans to make them go crazy.
Yeah, so sometimes when I look back at a lot of the things that I did, now that I have the knowledge I have, man, I haven't wrestled since 2003, but I'm still in the business because I still watch it, I still study it at different levels. So, and when I go back and watch a lot of the stuff that I did, I'll shrug my shoulders and say, man, that was garbage. It was average at best. Are you bad at looking at your old stuff and thinking the same thing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I look at the WWE stuff that I did, I'm like, oh my gosh, my Southern accent. I was so horrible. I was so bad. I was so green. I had not even been in wrestling 2 years, and I got called up there, and I was just like, I had no clue what I was doing. Didn't hand the microphone, ask a question and didn't give them the microphone. I mean, I look at some of my stuff and then some of my Memphis stuff, I cringe. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. My talking, I cringe at it.
Okay, if you could go back and say, okay, Missy Hyatt's going to get in the business, and it's okay. Let's just say it's the same time period. So you step into business at the same time period you did. Roughly 85-ish.
Yep, 85 is when I started.
So you step in at 85, but now you have all your smarts. So what would you have done differently now that you know what you do at the start of your career?
I would have stayed with Johnny, and I always think that when all the talent left world class and went to UWF, and then they started going really downhill after that, and they gave me my break and they did everything for me. I think I would have stayed in world class a little bit longer. And everybody that I've told that to, they're always like, yeah, and then you would have been making, $10 a night and you wouldn't have been doing anything. You wouldn't have been anywhere. But I think more of my loyalty to the Von Erichs would have made me stay there longer. But I don't think I would have broken me and Johnny up.
But what about with respect to just the workings of the business? Because I spent a long time, a year in Dallas, year and a half in Tennessee, and then WCW. I didn't get a whole lot of mic time, but now knowing what I know now, if I could go back to 89 and start again, I would have. And I was 24 when I started, almost a late start for a lot of people. Yeah. I would have focused way more on my promo. I would have learned how to talk, to express myself, not so much with necessarily making every promo about rocket science. How you deliver your message. You're trying to emote or elicit an emotional response from these people while you give them information. Right. Put salt and pepper on your words. I would have understood more about the character development that I'm trying to get people to buy into or to repel against substance or reason. The Stone Cold gimmick. With respect to in-ring work, shining people up, making them look good, wrestling, brawling, whatever I was doing, taking smart bumps. The bump I took in Japan when I tore my tricep off my arm, that was, I didn't need to be on the top rope. When you look at what today's generation is doing, they do some fantastic stuff. All I did was jump off and drop an elbow. No, it was basically a splash. The Japanese guy moved. I splashed and tore my tricep off my elbow. So I would, rethink my bump ticket. Your bump card, you only have so many holes you can punch in it. So I'd rethink what bumps I did. The pile driver with Owen. Accidents happen. That was an accident. But I would have worked a lot smarter than I did, because there's that old saying, Missy, work smarter, not harder. You always work hard, work as hard as you can, but that's one of the reasons why I looked up to rock and roll so much and Midnight Express so much. Those guys could do stuff, and all their stuff looked good, but when you locked up with Ricky Morton, it was like locking up with a shadow. You just felt him, and it was a pro-style lockup. Like Bob Eaton had one of the best lockups in the business. And people say, a lockup? A lockup? What are you talking about? It's the little things, but just that technical, the way he snapped it in. And you didn't feel anything he did. Those guys were so premier in the ring, their workmanship. I was working a little snug. But just the overall presentation of the product, watch what Flair did, Arn.
Oh, yeah. Like and back then, nowadays, they're just too fast for me. Nothing digests. I don't really, I see a match and I'm okay, what happened? Just what happened there? To me, it's just too fast. I think they need to, slow it down just a little bit for me. Because back then, the way they work, you could just, do things because you got four corners, four sides of people, and you got cameras there. You got to let stuff register to the people, because you're turning away, you're drinking a soda, you're doing this, it's got to register more. I think that I would have learned, if I could have gone to WWE, later in my career, when I had learned to talk on the mic more and learned my character more and things like that, I think it would have been a whole lot better. But that's shoulda, woulda, coulda.
There's a couple of guys down there in NXT, Dash and Dawson. They're the NXT Tag Team Champions. They had a match in Brooklyn a couple of months back, and with a guy named Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. And the match, the body of the match itself was very simple. I mean, there was no crazy moves. They were working a body part. But then, I mean, they're doing a whole lot of high-level stuff, pulling the referee on the hot tags, teamwork. I mean, these guys are totally synced up. So it was basic work, but there was such high-level work and so many things going on. Those guys would have fit in any era that there ever was tag team wrestling. That's how good they are. And there's a lot of stuff that happens, and I think it's around a 20-minute match, 22-minute match, whatever it was. But there's a lot of action in that thing. You know, the thing about it, Missy, is when you go back to mid-'80s and even the Attitude Era, I mean, we had sped it up a little bit. But it's like, you know, football sped up. They're playing, you know, everybody's playing, you know, no huddle offense, spread offense. It seems like everything is sped up. And so the business has too. And it's evolved more than just, you know, hey, the old hair pull behind the referee's back.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that. But there's a lot of things they can do. But to me, I don't know, maybe it's just I'm so old school. They to me, it's a little too fast for me. I don't think they let it digest. I don't think it goes. But that's just me.
So what's next for you, Missy?
What's next for me? Well, like I said, Newton, Alabama. I'm going to be in Newton, Alabama for a Civil War reenactment. So that's the next thing for me. I'm retired. I retired at WrestleMania, so I don't do any autograph shows anymore. I don't do anything.
Now, what made you just decide, and what was it, 2015 or 16 you retired?
In Dallas to 2016.
Yeah, so
last weekend.
So what made you just say, hey, that's it?
Well, because, you know, I have a real job, and going away on the weekends to go do shows, it was fun and I still enjoyed it, but being by myself doing it is not that much fun, traveling by myself. And plus, living in Tallahassee, I kept getting stuck at the airports because there's only so many flights into Tallahassee, and just, you know, I've slept in Charlotte Airport and Atlanta Airport and being stuck and can't get a flight in and things like that. And it's just, you know, my whole weekend. If I take a weekend off from work, I would really like to go and do a reenactment, a World War II or Civil War reenactment. That's my hobby, so I'd rather go and do that than go do the wrestling thing.
Okay, a lot of guys have a hard time getting away from the business. So how hard was it for you? I mean, it's been a long time.
I'm still active. I still watch it. I'm still a fan of it, and I still Twitter, you know. So.
Yeah, but you walked away from it. You retired.
Yeah, but I still Twitter about it and everything. So
I know, but you're not doing any appearances. You are not doing the business anymore. Because at some point you got to go on with another life. Yeah. I mean, it was time. I mean, and it's like I started my career in Dallas, and I thought I'd end it in Dallas. Okay, so then when you first started, and when I first started in 89, 90, hell, I didn't know what was going to happen.
I didn't think I'd be doing it for that many years. I never had any clue. It was just, to me, it was a fluke, and it was just an accident and an opportunity, and I had no idea I would have done it for as long as I did it.
All right, you asked me what I would have done if WCW hadn't hired me, and I didn't really know the answer because I didn't have Plan B. Okay, right. If you'd have never gotten a wrestling business, do you have any idea what you could have, would have, should have did?
I would have, I guess, stayed with Johnny and had babies.
Just been a mom.
Yeah, been a mom. Because that's the one thing I didn't get to do. I missed out on, so.
Are you upset about that decision?
No, because, you know, before I moved to Florida, I went to the 10-week course, and I was going to adopt. I was thinking about adopting. And I was adopted at birth, so adopting to me is no big deal. So
is there still time in your life to adopt, or are you just going to keep going down the road?
I just, you know, I live with my mom, and she just turned 90 years old, so it's not the right time right now. But I think after she passes and everything, I think it'll be the right time. As long as I can dress them up in little costumes and they can go to reenactments with me, I'll be happy.
All right, Missy.
Takes her daughter with her, so that's okay.
To delve into just a little bit of a personal issue, you got a little twisted up on some alcohol.
Oh, yeah. And pills.
All right. How bad was that? Because I hear nightmare stories.
You know what? It was pretty bad. I thought I was going to die. I really did. I thought I was going to die.
How bad did you get?
Oh, I got really bad. I mean, to the point that I, blacked out, didn't even know where, woke up, didn't know what day it was, didn't know what year it was, didn't even know what month it was.
What were you drinking?
Oh, scotch.
Scotch?
Yeah, scotch.
What kind of pills were you taking?
Oh my gosh, I was taking everything and anything. Somas, Xanax, Percocet, what else? Anything, anything I could get a script for, I would take it, and I'd take it to excess. If it said take one pill every 4 hours, I'm like, oh, I'll take 4 pills every 1 hour. Okay. I had no conception of that, and I don't know if I was trying to hurt myself because I was feeling bad about myself, and my self-esteem was really low at the time, but I kicked myself out of it. My best friend kicked me out of it, and she had a big talking with me and kicked me out of it, and I stopped.
Why did you start taking pain pills and stuff like that? Were you in pain, or they were just floating around? So I said, hey, I'll try those.
They were I was in pain. I had a couple car accidents, and I was in pain, so I would get them. But, I, get them from people. If you know the right people, you can get whatever you want. If you want Cuban cigars, I can get you Cuban cigars even before they were, if you got the right connections, you can get whatever you need. But
how long did it take you to get clean and healthy?
It probably took me, I would say, a few months. I mean, I just quit. I mean, I went to the doctor and told him, hey, I've got a problem. I need to quit. I need your help. What can I do? What can you do for me? And he helped me.
Are you good now?
I'm great now. I've been since 2005.
Do you drink at all? Can you have a social drink?
I can if I want to, and I just don't. I have I do wine demos too sometimes part time, and I got a bunch of wine, champagne in the cabinet, and I usually keep it and give it as gifts. If you're going over to somebody's house for dinner or something, bring a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne or something like that. I'd give it away, but I don't drink. But if I go out, if I want to have one, I can have one, and I don't think it's going to make me go back and start, drinking a fifth of Dewar's a day. I don't think that'll happen.
Is that what you're drinking, a fifth?
I don't even remember. But, I mean, I'd have Dewar's, and then I'd also keep Stoli in the freezer, because Stoli cold is really good.
I know. I should keep mine in the freezer as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got so bad. As far as like having a drink, I was just like, I turned to a drink snob. I'd keep Crown Royal or my Grey Goose vodka in the damn freezer, and then I keep my glasses in the freezer. My rocks are in the freezer. So, if you go to a regular bar, they're going to grab a room temperature glass. Just grab some of those gimmick ice cubes out of the mega maker thing, the bulk maker, and then the bottle of vodka or Crown Royal or whatever it is room temperature, and they pour in the Coke from the machine. It's like, man, that's the worst drink I've ever had. I got all my stuff scientifically cold. So if I'm drinking, I get the same thing with my margarita mix down there at the ranch or whatever. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So I kind of spoil myself.
Oh, yeah, and I love my margaritas. I can make some great margaritas with a little bit of Grand Marnier.
But just a little, because if you put too much, it gets too tart, and they give you...
Yeah, you can. You just have that little shot of Grand Marnier and make that margarita. Yeah, I could still... I mean, if I went on a trip and, let's say, went to the islands or something like that, there wouldn't be any reason why I wouldn't have a Bacardi or a foo-foo drink or anything like that. I would enjoy that.
Well, good. So you can have one and then you're cool.
Yeah, I'm cool. I don't need to get blacked out.
No, that's bad. That's not a good thing. I'm glad you or your friend intervened and you got some help and everything's good.
Yeah, me too. Because I'm still here. Because I probably wouldn't be here. So I'm here.
On Twitter, she's at Missy Hyatt. I'm at Steve Austin BSR. I'm going to come back and close the show. Thanks, Missy.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, give me the go home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off into the sunset. But before I do that, let me tell you about my day. I'm sitting here at my desk in my camper on set at the Broken Skull Challenge compound. It's about 2 p.m. We just eliminated 4 people. We're going about our business to find one person who will take on the Skullbuster. We've been very fortunate to have a beautiful day out here today. It's probably about, almost 80 degrees with a breeze going. And tomorrow, I think it's supposed to be between 66 and 72 degrees out here all day long, which will be awesome because it touched upon 103, 105 degrees just a few weeks ago. That's how extreme the weather changes can be out here. And, it's a sign that fall is here with football season, hunting season right around the corner. Looking forward to getting down there to Broken Skull Ranch with Teddy and hunting some deer and all that stuff. But I want to thank Missy Hyatt for putting together a list of questions and talking to me and helping me out with the podcast today. It's always a pleasure to talk to Missy. And glad to hear that she's in such a good place with her life and all the things that she's doing. I got to give you guys something to watch today. And I was going on YouTube, and I was thinking, man, I'm going to hit these guys with some country music. And so if you ain't into country music, you might not want to look at this video that I'm going to tell you to watch. But if you do get on YouTube, type in simply Conway Twitty. That's my job. It's a live performance by Conway Twitty. Conway Twitty, that's my job. And listen to the words of the song. Man, Conway Twitty was one of my favorites of all time. Before he passed away, he had 55 number 1 hits. The only guy that could top him was George Strait when he eclipsed the feat of 50 number 1 hits with She'll Leave You With a Smile, and then reached number 1 for the 56th time in 2007 when the single Wrapped hit the top of the media-based 24/7 list. But I tell you what, Conway Twitty was one of my favorite singers of all time, and it's just a song with some great lyrics to it. I love the story of this song, so check it out, and if you like it, send me some emails to questions@steveaustonshow.com. Coming up for this Thursday show, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to pull something out of a hat and make it happen, but if you got any questions, send them to questions@steveaustonshow.com, because I might just make it an OMCF, a one-man cluster muck. Hey, man, here's a couple of quick reminders. I want to say, first off, thank you very much to Ryan Barkin and all the guys at Pro Wrestling Tees for cranking all my T-shirts for this season's Broken Skull Challenge. I'm going to start releasing those shirts pretty soon. They'll be on BrokenSkullRanch.com and ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin, and they're coming soon. If you're looking for the best damn IPA available, get the Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Stop in if you're in L.A., 140 Main Street. Pick it up at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California, or order it from BrokenSkullRanch.com, where you can find a link to InsideTheCellar.com, and they will ship it to a state that you live in if your state allows that. You can find the Steve Austin Broken Skull knife from Cold Steel Knives at BrokenSkullRanch.com. This is a knife that has been highly rated by all the reviews of people that have reviewed it. If you know anything about knives, this is a badass knife, and everyone should have one. Hey, man, I appreciate all the word-of-mouth advertising y'all are doing on behalf of the podcast. I don't have an advertising budget. I don't have any signs. All I got is people that spread the word, and people listen to the show all over the world. So for that, I say thank you. I appreciate y'all supporting the sponsors of the Steve Austin podcast, because they're the ones who let me do this for you free twice a week. So big thanks to my man DDP. DDPyoga.com/Austin. Get 20% off the DDP Yoga DVDs and 3 months to full access to the DDP Yoga Now app for a limited time. Thanks to DraftKings. Use my promo code Steve to play for free with no deposit in this weekend's $100,000 contest. Big thanks to the Dollar Shave Club. Join dollarshaveclub.com/Steve now and get your first month free. And, of course, a big thank you to Amazon, who have been supporting this podcast since day one. Folks, if you use my Amazon links whenever you're doing any online shopping, Amazon will kick back a couple of bucks to the podcast. It does not cost you anything extra. There's no hidden fees or charges. Just buy whatever you're planning on buying and help out the podcast in the process. You can find my Amazon links by going to PodcastOne.com, clicking on the Killer Deals button at the top right corner of the page, and then hitting the Steve Austin Show button. I've got Amazon links for USA, UK, and Canada. So again, go to PodcastOne.com, click the Killer Deals button in the top right corner, and then click on the Steve Austin Show. That's where you'll find all my great sponsors, and you can do your shopping. And if you bookmark it, you can save a lot of headaches, hassles, by just going right to the click if you bookmark it. Hey, folks, on Instagram, I'm Steve Austin, BSR. On Twitter, I'm Steve Austin, BSR. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until next time, My name is Steve Austin. I'm coming to you from the Broken Skull Challenge compound where we are almost through, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.